Welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And this is Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder. And today's episode is brought to you by Limerick Breast Pumps. Limerick Breast Pumps, in case I didn't say that clearly enough. Limerick Breast Pumps have patented Comfort Touch technology that mimics the way your baby nurses and are all FDA qualified with the highest safety rating. And we will hear more from our lovely new sponsor later on. But you can head to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com and check out our sponsor page. If you ever need anything, see if you can give them any of your business because they make this podcast possible. And don't leave without checking our shop page with all of our awesome merchandise. And we are on Patreon, and we would really love to see you over there. And I'm going to shout out to our new patrons. And we are doing lots of fun things like Zoom. We have another Zoom hangout coming up for June, and we have extra episodes. We have little mini demo videos that we do. We have weekly wellness checks where everyone talks about what's going on with them and gets advice if they need it. And
Revolution Parenting.
Yeah, we have the Revolution Parenting episodes going up there each month. And our newest patrons are Joy H, Trisha F, Alyssa W, Ilana M, Caitlin P. I'm going to mess up this name. Siraporn S, Holly S, Carly S. Now I'm getting to ones I don't know if I've said before. Meredith K, Shannon S. I think I'm definitely down to people I've said before. Anyway, we have people joining us all the time. We really hope that you'll join us there. You can check the link at the top of the show notes, wherever you're listening from, scroll down. And sometimes I say that, and then I realize that I didn't put it there. So it does end up there, but maybe sometimes a little bit after the episode's already been published. And I'm like, oh yeah, wait, move that to the top. So anyway, I will try to remember to put it towards the top. And if it's not, it's towards the middle, but I'll move it to the top because Dianne puts it in the middle. And so I move it to the top, and then I put that there along with our Babies and Bumps link, because we will be in Cincinnati on June 11th at Babies and Bumps, and we will be in Indianapolis on August 6th at Babies and Bumps. So if you would like to join us there, we hope you do. It's a cool conference with baby stuff and doulas and midwives and products. And the baby guy, Jamie Grayson, does his baby registry of all his favorite products. And we will be there. And we hope that you come and see us. And we're still hosting that ongoing giveaway. I've gotten a lot lately. Of people sending screenshots of their reviews around the internet. And if you send an email to badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com with a screenshot of your review and your address, we will send you a goodie bag of Badass Breastfeeding Podcast stickers and Thank You for Nursing in Public cards. And people are doing it. So
I just ordered more stickers.
Yeah. So people are doing it. So send them in, and we will send you those goodie bags. We appreciate your listening. And I know people share this episode or share the podcast a lot, and we really appreciate it. And we appreciate your reviews, and we'd be more than happy to send you a goodie bag. So send it on over. And now Dianne has our review of the week.
Yes. And I love the name. I usually don't say the names of people that do the reviews, but this one I love because it's Like a Boss. Oh, yeah. Love this podcast. I live in a rural community in eastern Colorado, and there is not much support for breastfeeding. As a first-time mom, this podcast gave me the confidence and support to make it to 15 months of breastfeeding. Now I have a 4-month-old and have returned as this baby is much different and has presented some other challenges. Thank you so much for giving me the confidence to feed my babies. You're doing awesome. I know you are doing awesome. That is amazing. Thank you so much for the review. Congratulations to you. And 15 months is awesome. It's seriously not easy to get through those first few months. So good for you. You're doing great. And thank you so much for the review.
Yeah, speaking of those first few months.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about that. First, can I just complain for a second?
Of course.
I have a mosquito bite on the side of my finger, my middle finger. I have a mosquito
That's really
bite. I don't know
annoying.
if it is very annoying. I don't know if anybody else is prone to mosquito bites like I am. It's
yes,
ridiculous.
mosquitoes love me.
Oh,
We're actually going camping this weekend, and I'm just like, oh God, I feel like I just need to like bathe and DEET.
Yeah, it's just like
it's so horrible.
I hate it. And my husband never gets it. Tom is not a magnet for mosquitoes.
Some people just, the mosquitoes don't bite them. I don't understand.
No, we'll be sitting outside and I'll be smacking myself silly. And he's like, what is going on with you? And I'm like, the mosquitoes. Why aren't you getting any issues here? I have them on my feet right now. It's like, isn't it too soon for this? It's only June, the beginning of June.
That's really annoying.
Soon. It is very annoying. So now I have one on my middle finger. So people are going to think I'm flipping them off all day because I'm going to be putting my finger up.
That's awesome.
But we are going to talk about the like breastfeeding 101, right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't know that we've ever really done a 101.
No, because this came from Victoria when I was hanging out with our listener Victoria in where were we? Detroit.
We were in Detroit.
Yeah, and we were hanging out and I was like, do you have any episode ideas or whatever? And she was like, yeah, what about, she gave me a whole bunch of ideas, but then one of them was, what about just like a breastfeeding, like a basics, just like a real, like really just down to the basics. And something that can, help, I don't know, people, everybody who's getting started, who's pregnant, who's, all those people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great idea because you don't get, when I was pregnant with Jack, I wanted to breastfeed. I knew I wanted to breastfeed. And I'd never seen anybody breastfeed. I didn't know anybody who breastfed. I didn't know anybody who had babies. And so, I remember reading, I read like what to expect when you're expecting.
Ew.
I read, I can't remember, some other like birthing book or something. Because that's all that I cared about. I was just worried about the birth. I didn't like the whole after the birth thing was like too abstract. I couldn't even think about that. I was like, wow, I just have to get through this birth. But I read some things about breastfeeding and like, I was so unprepared. I was just so completely unprepared for like, and I think when you're getting started, you're not ready to hear about like tongue ties or like whatever, like, because you just need like such super basic information. And that really super basic information, first of all, that should be taught in health class, but it's not. We just don't get it. So yeah, Victoria, that was Victoria's idea. So shout out to Victoria.
The class that I do, so we're going to kind of go off a little bit of the class that I do.
Perfect.
For a hospital-based, I do a hospital-based breastfeeding class, and it is like a breastfeeding 101 type of class. And obviously, it's a 2-hour class, so we get into way more
summarize.
Detail than we're gonna get into today, or we might have to do a part 2 or something, because I wrote down like some of the big things that I wanted to make sure we covered.
Yeah.
But people do, like, I have had people complain that I didn't talk about tongue tie or I didn't talk about nipple shield, and it's like, because
No,
I feel like is not like basic stuff. Like, it just
no, and that basic stuff is covered by the number one piece of Breastfeeding 101, which is have a lactation consultant. That you are, even when especially when you're pregnant, if you are planning when you're pregnant, the biggest thing that you need to put, because people are like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to prepare my breasts? What do I need to do to like, what do I need to do to prepare for breastfeeding? The only thing that you need to do is get a lactation consultant. Like, just have one, look around, ask friends, ask your pediatrician's office if they have a list of local lactation consultants. The way that I found my lactation consultant was I just called the La Leche League, because I didn't know about any of this stuff. And I called her. I looked on the website and there was a number there, and I just called the first one. It was Allison, and she like saved the day. I just called her and she was like, it's weird cold calling people these days.
Yeah.
because we just don't live in that world now. Now it's like if my phone rings, I'm just like, oh my God, who's calling me?
I know.
But like, this is what they do. That's why the phone number is there. She was like expecting my call. You know, she knew that her phone number was there and that people were going to be calling her. And I just said, I'm having some issues. And she was like, okay, great. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And
that's what they're there for.
yeah, that's why I feel like that's like, you don't need to hear about, you need to hear about what's possibly going on if it doesn't seem like your baby's latching, or if it doesn't seem like, if it seems like something's going wrong, that's what the lactation consultant is for.
Right. Exactly.
So
Yes.
that's why I feel like, that seems like a little complicated to go through like right away.
I know. And I feel like too, like if I sit there and talk to everybody about nipple shields, like everybody's going to run out and get one and start using one. And that's not what I want you to do. I want you to work with a lactation consultant if you think you need something like that, or if they think you need something like that. But we're going to talk about just like the basic stuff that maybe even gets lost now, like, because when you're looking around on the internet for information, you're not necessarily seeing like, what are the benefits of breastfeeding and, things like that. And I mean, the benefits of breastfeeding, we know, people, I always say everybody has their own reason why they want to breastfeed, right? Like everybody has their own reason. And we used to do class in person, now of course it's via Zoom, but when we did it in person, I'd be like, why does everybody want to breastfeed? Why are you all here? Like, what is your point to this? And some people said the bonding, a lot of people said bonding, health benefits. We know it's super healthy for babies, right? We know that breast milk is so healthy for them that it helps to keep them healthy. It's like gives them all the immunities that you have, and it is just really, really beneficial to their well-being. We know that. But a lot of people say, the bonding, which is also amazing and very, very needed. It is so needed for your baby to have that very intimate breastfeeding bond with you. They bond with other people too. Everybody thinks that the baby's only going to bond with one person if you're breastfeeding, but that's not true. Babies bond with, the partners and whatever, but it is just a different kind of bond that is very important for them. And people will also say like the financial benefit of it. And now, of course, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, people are getting crazy with that. People are like, "Oh, breastfeeding's not free, mom's time." Yes, absolutely. But we also know that this is just part of being a parent, right? Feeding your child is part of being a parent. So you can
Right.
decide,
The time you're going to take the same amount of time, actually less time with
right,
breastfeeding than with
right,
dealing with bottles. And
exactly.
we all know we're talking about cold hard cash, people.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what we're talking about when we talk about breastfeeding is, a lot cheaper because formula is expensive. It doesn't cost a lot to make formula, but it costs a lot to buy formula because it's a huge upscale marketing thing. So there is a lot of money involved. So even if you're just partially breastfeeding, you're still going to save yourself a lot of money um, by just, giving your baby breast milk. For me personally, like there's environmental benefits. I know we did an episode on that as well, but there's a huge amount of environmental benefits. I'm just going to read this because I've got it in my thing here.
Yeah.
Um,
Zoom through it.
In the US alone, 550 million cans, 86,000 tons of metal, and 364,000 tons of paper annually used to package breast milk or breast milk substitutes that end up in landfills. That's a lot of stuff. So if you're somebody who is really concerned about the environment and, the footprint we're leaving behind, that might be something that's important to you. For me, I decided to breastfeed my first one. I knew nothing about anything, and I decided to breastfeed because I thought formula feeding would be too hard. That was why I chose it, because I was like, I think it's good. What kind of formula do I use? What kind of bottles do I use? How much do I give? What if they don't like it? What if it's not the right formula for them? Then how do I know which one to do? That all seemed too complicated for me. So I was like, I'm going to breastfeed instead,
Yeah.
which of course is a different kind of complication. But That's why I chose it. I knew nothing about the benefits. I didn't know that it was so good. I didn't know that it could save, it could protect mothers from cancer. I didn't know that it could protect, parents from diabetes and cardiovascular disease and things like that. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was going to give my baby immunity that was going to last the rest of his life. I had no idea. But that was why I chose it, because I thought it'd be easier.
Yeah.
Because, I'm lazy. So there you go. Sometimes it helps to be lazy.
Yeah.
But that was why I chose it. So those are some of the benefits. And then I do get into talking about myths, and we have a lot of myths episodes, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on myths. But one of the things that I definitely wanted to make sure we talk about when it comes to myths is diet. And you do not have to be on a specific diet at all. And I know when we do our myths episodes, a lot of times they're way more like complex than just like talking about diet. But diet is a big one, and all over the internet tells you can't eat this, you can't eat that, you have to stay away from this or that or whatever, or you have to eat this, you have to eat that. You do not need any kind of specific diet. You don't need any kind of special diet to breastfeed. You can eat whatever you want to, unless we see that something is an issue later on as your baby is, going through this. But otherwise, eat whatever you want as you're going on with your breastfeeding journey.
Yeah. And the issue will never be that your baby is gassy because you ate broccoli.
Never.
That is never a thing.
It is not. That will never happen. It is not going to be you can't eat spaghetti sauce because the spiciness is going to bother your baby. Think about all the different cultures around the world and how they eat all sorts of different things. Their babies are, it's fine.
And how people have breastfed babies through like natural disasters, through concentration camps, through poverty, through famine. Yeah. I mean, this is, your body's got you.
Yeah, it's okay. You can totally eat whatever you want. You can drink whatever you want. It has nothing to do with how much water you're drinking. There is no research behind that at all. There's no research to say that you have to drink 3 gallons of water a day to make enough breast milk. That is not a thing. So don't even worry about that. Drink to thirst. If you feel thirsty, drink something just like you would on a regular day. Caffeine is fine. Alcohol is okay. Like, there is so much stuff that people tell you cannot do when you're breastfeeding, but nobody tells you what you can do. And
which is all of the things that they're telling you not to do. You can actually do all those.
Yeah. You can go on with your life. It doesn't need to be so restrictive. You can actually go on with your life. Totally fine. So let's talk about pain for a second. It's not supposed to be painful.
Should we take a break before you talk about pain?
We should. I just looked at the time. Yeah, we should probably take a break.
Let's just take a quick break and we'll be back. Diane can gather her notes and talk about pain in a minute because, we're all waiting on the edge of our seats to talk about pain.
I know.
We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Limerick Breast Pumps. Thank goodness, because the pain, worry, and stress that comes from trying to get breast milk, well, sucks with a capital S. But the good news is Limerick allows moms to get their milk in comfort and ease. Why? Because everything that Limerick stands for is comfort. And that's with a capital C. Unlike other cups, which are hard, complicated, and a pain to find the right size, Limerick's pumps have patented comfort touch technology that mimics the way your baby nurses and are all FDA qualified with the highest safety rating. Limerick's cups are made of naturally soft medical-grade silicone that forms to all moms' unique shapes and sizes. So they get the best fit with the one-size-fits-all breast cup. And Limerick's pumps are the only ones to offer a micron filter, which means no bacteria, viruses, or fluid enters the motor. So pumping is safe and comfortable. Go to limerickinc.com, that's LIMERICKINC.com, and use code BADASS for 25% off of your purchase and see why pumping doesn't have to suck. And today's sponsor and the promo code can be found in the show notes under this episode at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com or wherever you are listening from. Scroll down and check the show notes. Also at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, you'll find all of our other episodes and information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne.
Yeah. All right. So talk about pain here for a second.
Let's do it.
Breastfeeding should not be painful. The end. That's like really the bottom line. It should not be a painful experience. What is normal is if you latch your baby, and we're talking about like, in the very beginning, you latch your baby, you might feel a little bit of like sensitivity or tenderness initially that might last 30 to 60 seconds. And then you should feel only the pull or the tug of the baby, which might feel strange because you're not used to that, right? Like this is
Yeah, that's
something
totally going to
completely
feel
new.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to feel really weird.
But you shouldn't be like, oh my God, this is excruciating. You
Yeah.
shouldn't have that initial latch pain for the entire time the baby is latched on. You should not have any kind of nipple damage. You should not have cracking or blistering or bruising or anything like that. You should not, nobody should be telling you, if you are in the hospital and you say this is painful and they tell you, well, yeah, you're breastfeeding, it's going to be painful for a couple weeks. That is not the right answer. And I hear that all the time. That is not the right answer. If it's painful, we need to fix it. I don't know why anybody expects you to do something that's painful for a long period of time.
I know, it's crazy.
It really is. It really is. Like, I can't even understand why people think that that's okay to just tell you, yeah, it's going to be painful for a few weeks, and then your nipples are going to harden up, and then it's going to be fine. That doesn't even happen. That's not something that even happens.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that you're comfortable. So we need to look at the latch. We need to look at positioning. We need to make sure that, and usually it's just a positioning thing. And once we get it figured out, it's fine. But you should not be in pain at all. Make sure when you are in the hospital, make sure a lactation consultant is able to see the baby latching. If you're, having your baby in a hospital, make sure that somebody sees the baby latched. Because I know when I worked in the hospital setting, sometimes I would go in the room and they'd be like, oh yeah, the baby already ate, or the baby was sleeping, or they had company or whatever. And sometimes you never did see a baby latched. Make sure somebody sees the baby latched on so that they can, make sure that positioning looks good, that latch looks good. You can ask all your questions because that's why they're there for you in the hospital, is to do that. If once you're home, if you're having pain, definitely contact a lactation consultant. Don't just figure, okay, this is going to go away. This is, this is just painful right now. It's going to go away in a few weeks, and a few weeks go by and you're even more pain. No, call somebody right away because you shouldn't be in pain. Next thing, stomach capacity. Woohoo! How big is your baby's stomach the first couple days of their life? Pretty freaking small.
Yeah.
Baby's stomach is about the size, we like to use food as a comparison, is about the size of a cherry.
That's funny because it's a stomach.
Because it's food. Yeah, about the size of a cherry. So like 5 to 7 mLs, which is like less than half an ounce. That is the size of your baby's stomach in the first day of their life, the first 24 hours of their life. That is how big their stomach is. Really small. And you know what they do in the hospital if you're not breastfeeding? They hand you a 2-ounce bottle of formula.
Yep.
Which is way too much. And you think, what you don't know any better, right? You just give it to them.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you? Because it's bad to
Because
waste things.
then they're going to tell you some reason like, here, you have to give it. And then you're like, you just had a baby. You're going to do whatever.
Right.
They say, because they're telling you something's wrong. You're going to, that's what they were like. Oh, your baby's starving because your milk hasn't come in and that's why he's crying. I was like, holy shit, give him a bottle.
I know. You don't want your baby to starve, right? Nobody wants their baby to be hungry. Your baby's not hungry. It's totally okay.
No, and I always like to say, like, do you know, like, just remember how you felt for the last couple of months. That was like your baby was eating good the whole time. They don't come out hungry. They sucked you dry for 9 months. They're fine.
Yeah. Yeah. They're totally fine. They're getting everything they need.
You're the one
from
who
the
needs, you
colostrum.
need some food. You need something to drink. You need to, like, your baby's fine.
Yeah. Your baby wants to be on you and wants to be nursing because they want to be connected to you, but they're not starving to death or anything like that.
Right.
Their stomach is so small. So they're only taking small amounts of colostrum, which is what you're making from halfway through pregnancy. Your body is making colostrum, which is an amazing substance for them.
Right. And
It
that's like why
is.
that's why your body is making just tiny drops, because that's all your baby can fit right now.
Exactly.
Like it doesn't make any sense that your body would just like, oops, not make enough milk in the beginning because it didn't know.
Yeah.
No, like that's why that's happening, because it's supposed to.
Yeah. We always say, like, if your baby needed a full milk supply the minute they were born, you would have that. That's what you would
Right.
have the minute they were born. But you don't, because that's not what they need. What they need is colostrum, and that's what your body is making, and it's really important that they get that. So, and they're not like latching on and cluster feeding because they're starving. They're doing that because that's where they want to be. That is their connection to you. That is where they're safe. That is what babies want. And the colostrum gives them everything they need. They don't need anything, but it is really important that they get that colostrum. But they don't need anything in addition to that. They're getting enough. That's plenty. By day 2, their stomach has the ability to hold a little bit more volume. By day 3, a little bit more volume. By day 3, their stomach is able to hold about 20 mLs, which is a little bit more. It's just under an ounce. So even by day 3, they're still not taking a 2-ounce bottle of formula, or they shouldn't be anyway. And if they do, they'll probably throw it up at you, or it's going to stretch their stomach out. And we don't really want that either. But when they're breastfeeding, they're taking what they need. So by day 3, the other thing is too, magically, your milk is starting to come in right around day 3, day 4. And that is the time when your baby's stomach is a little bit bigger and can hold more volume. So really, everything balances out the way it's supposed to balance out perfectly. But we like to mess with the whole thing. And
I
yeah,
know, it's like
that's,
nature has this like design or something.
yeah.
And then we're like, oh no, that must be wrong.
I know. That must be wrong. Why would we do that?
I mean, the ego on humans is like unbelievable.
Mhm. The baby's stomach is going to continue to grow and hold more volume as they get bigger. But because their stomach is so small in the beginning, this is why, one of the reasons why they eat so frequently. And that is really something I think that we don't think about. We don't take the time to sit back and go, oh, my baby is not eating every hour and a half to terrorize me. They're doing it because their stomach is so small, they can only hold small amounts every feeding, and the breast milk is really easy for them to digest. So this is why they're feeding frequently. What we do is we give formula to stretch them out because we're selfish. That's what humans do. Like we tend to go, oh, we want them to go longer between feeds because
Yeah.
that would benefit me.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't
Yeah.
benefit your baby.
And
That's not what your baby needs.
try to get them to sleep longer, try to get them to just be more manageable.
Mm-hmm. But
Need
for
you less.
babies, small frequent feedings are what works for their system. And breast milk is what works for their system. So that is why they're feeding frequently. They don't do that forever, but as a newborn, that is something that they do. They do frequent feeds, and they're happy. I mean, they're happy. The breast milk is very easily digested. It agrees with their system, and that's all they need to do. So that is stomach capacity. Now, let's talk for a minute about sleepy babies. Your baby is going to be a little bit sleepy in the beginning, which is really, really normal. And in the hospital, if you do have your baby in a hospital or whatever, they're going to tell you, like, wake your baby every 3 hours for feedings. When you get home and your baby starts to wake up a little bit more, it might be more than every 3 hours. It might be every hour and a half. It might be every 2 hours. Everybody says, like, breastfed babies feed somewhere between every hour and a half to 3 hours. But it's been my experience that babies usually settle in right around the 2-hour mark. So that is not uncommon that you would see that. But when they tell you in the hospital your baby's going to eat every 3 hours and your baby's eating every hour and a half to 2 hours, you're like, what is going on with my baby? They're starving. They're not getting what they need because they're eating more frequently than what they were doing in the hospital. In the hospital, they were sleepy, very brand new, and you're having to wake them all the time. As they get a little bit bigger, they're not as sleepy. But in the very beginning, they are very sleepy and you are waking them up. And then if you've had like a medicated delivery, they're getting all those drugs too, which makes them more sleepy. So it's just you're really spending a lot of time waking them up and making sure that they're awake and trying to keep them awake for feeds, which can feel a little bit challenging, but it's really important to do that. You have anything you want to say about sleeping babies?
No.
A couple of ways that you can wake them up, because I do go into this in my class. Undress them. So when you're in the hospital or when they're brand new or you're home and you're just kind of hanging out, undress them for a feeding if they're still really sleepy. If it's middle of the day, they're sleepy, you're trying to get them up from a nap, undress them. You're changing a diaper anyway. That's another way to try to kind of get them stimulated and wake them up. Check or change their diaper, undress them. Feeding them skin to skin is really helpful. It really helps to stimulate them. They just do much better that way. You don't have to undress them if you're out in public or, like anything like that, obviously. But, or if you're, like in a doctor's office and, you're nursing your baby, you don't have to sit in the waiting room and strip their clothes off or anything like that. But if you're home, just undress them the first week of their life or whatever, and that will really help to get them to feed a little bit better. Hold them skin to skin, if they're really sleepy and like, okay, it's been a couple hours, I really need to wake up the baby to get him fed. Hold them skin to skin, put them right on your chest. That usually works to wake them up. Skin to skin does just, and we've got an episode on skin to skin that we did not too long ago. It really is just like the go-to for all the things. If you have a fussy baby, put them skin to skin. If you have a baby that's not feeding well, put them skin to skin. It just really helps. So that's always the go-to if you're like unsure of what's going on with your baby. Just put them skin to skin. All right. Cluster feeding. And we do have an episode about cluster feeding as well. We have an episode on a lot of this stuff, but we're going to put it all in one episode for you. So helpful. But if you want more in-depth information, then definitely go to those episodes. But cluster feeding is very common for newborns. I was just telling a new mother this the other day. This is a newborn thing. This is not, your baby will likely not cluster feed when they're 8 months old. That is just not something you're going to see then. Cluster feeding is a newborn thing. And what it is your baby is feeding very frequently in a short amount of time. And it's usually a specific time of the day. For a lot of babies, it's like the evening time. Some people call it like the witching hour, where your baby's super fussy and they just want to be latched on all the time. For some babies, it might be the morning. Maybe if they slept a little bit longer, it might be the morning where they're trying to catch up because they're a little bit more hungry. But you might notice that your baby eats every 2 to 3 hours or every hour and a half to 3 hours all throughout the day. And then you hit this point of the day where they're just like, want to eat. They just want to be on the breast. They just want to eat. They're fussy if they're not latched on. That is what we call cluster feeding. And that is a really normal thing for babies. And they are, they're eating. They might do that if they're going through a growth spurt too. They'll eat a lot more frequently, a lot more often during spans of time. It is very normal and natural for your baby to do this. A lot of it is overstimulation too. If they've been overstimulated, if they've done a lot that day, maybe you've had doctor's appointments or lots of company, then they're going to be a little bit more overstimulated. You might see them cluster feeding a little bit more. And that is because their little nervous system is just immature. So they get very overstimulated very easily, and nursing helps to calm them. It helps to regulate them, and it helps to soothe them. It's self-soothing. Nursing is self-soothing for them. So that is one of the things that you will see them do, is that cluster feeding. As they get a little bit bigger and they're able to manage those things on their own, you're not going to see this as much. But this is usually a time where people question their milk supply. when the baby is feeding a lot, when they're doing that cluster feeding, that is when people go, I must not be making enough milk. Or maybe somebody says to you, are you sure you're making enough milk? Because your baby just ate an hour ago. Yes, you're making enough milk. It is very uncommon for somebody to not make enough milk. You are making enough milk. Your baby just wants to eat more frequently during that time period. That's all. That's all there is to it. I was doing this class the other day, and the mom was like, one of the, pregnant people was like, I eat every hour myself. She goes, it's just more comfortable for me. So she doesn't eat every hour, but she's like, I don't eat like 3 meals a day. I
Yeah.
don't eat 3 big meals a day. She goes, that's not comfortable for me. I just am not like that. So I will eat smaller frequent feeds. And I'm like, so why would you think that your baby wouldn't do that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's more comfortable for people to do that. So, and babies, that's more comfortable for them. So you're going to see that cluster feeding, and it is really normal, and it is okay. And it's not, does nothing to do with your milk supply. In fact, it's good for your milk supply. There's more stimulation of the baby nursing is going to be better for your milk supply. So totally normal newborn stuff. So how often do we feed our baby? We feed the babies, like I said, every hour and a half to 3 hours. Overnight, whatever the baby wants to do, but at least probably, as a newborn, pediatricians usually like to make sure you're feeding your baby like every 3 hours at least overnight too. So that's a conversation to have with your pediatrician. If you feel like you want to go a little bit longer overnight, or your baby wants to go longer overnight, if they'll do that, then talk to your pediatrician about it. But most babies will do a 3-hour stretch overnight too. 3 to 4, and then go maybe 1 3 or 4 hour stretch, and then go right back into that every 2 hours again. So you are feeding your baby on demand, meaning whenever they're showing you cues, but that will probably be around every 1.5 to 3 hours. You're looking at 8 to 12 times in a 24-hour period. If you want to look at the big picture, if you're a bigger picture kind of person, you're looking at, and that's probably going to be more, not as much the 8 times, but more like the 12 times for a newborn, at least, if not more. So how long will feeds last? Do you remember how long your baby's fed for?
No, because they were just on. Like, I just kind of kept them on. So, like, they would eat, and then they would just kind of doze off, and then, like, eat again a little later. I don't know. I never really paid attention because I was just, they were just always there.
Yeah, they were always there. This
They're
is a question that I get a lot. People are like, how long is a baby going to feed for? And I don't know if this comes just from like those apps that people are like, because they're timing it, so they want to know, or if it comes from people telling them, or the internet telling them your baby should feed 10 minutes on each side. Don't worry about the time. Don't worry about it. Try to really not worry. Don't time your baby and say, okay, the baby's been here for 10 minutes. I need to take them off and move them. Don't do that. That is not good for your milk supply. That will tell your body that you're cutting off at a certain time. We don't want to do that. We want to follow what the baby is doing. However, if you need a little bit of guidelines, because there are some people that are very, need that structure of time, and I understand that. What I usually tell people is, in the hospital, babies feed a little bit longer. You might find that your baby in the hospital is feeding for 30, 45 minutes. They're not necessarily feeding that whole time, but that's kind of what you're expecting to see.
I mean, that's what I was going to say, is like, if you're going to actually time the amount of time that your baby is eating, then you need to really understand the difference between eating and what they call non-nutritive suckling. Because they could just stay there. They're not, breastfeeding is so much more than food. They're not just eating that whole time.
Right.
They're dozing off. Sometimes they're swallowing. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just hanging out. Sometimes they're lightly suckling for comfort, but not drinking. If there's all kinds of, I don't know how people time this.
I know.
Unless you're like
It's
staring
really,
at them, managing and measuring their, because you can. It's very easy to learn the different suckles. I mean, and I do remember learning that and being able to look at my baby and say like, okay, he's eating or he's not eating right now. But like, then you're just like measuring that on and off.
I know. It's really hard to do. And it's hard to measure because then you
And
are
not
really kind of
necessary.
like, it's not. No, it's really not. But in the hospital, your baby is like figuring out how to suck, swallow, and breathe. They're figuring out that coordination. They're using these brand new muscles that are very tiring. They're, there's a lot going on with your baby. So to say, okay, how long are they going to be here? That's a kind of a loaded question because they're there. They're figuring these things out and they're not feeding the entire time. They're learning how to feed. As they get bigger and more coordinated, not bigger like, but as they're going through the days, and they're getting more coordinated, they're starting to get a little bit more efficient. They're starting to figure things out. Those feeds don't last as long when they're the actual feed time. But like Abby said, they are spending time just doing that non-nutritive sucking because that is healthy for them. And I know some people say that they don't like that. Or I actually have a lot of people that say, is it okay if the baby's just there? Like, yeah, that's totally fine. Because somehow our society has labeled it, if your baby's not eating, they don't need to be at the breast.
Right. And that's not true. They do need to be there.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about the food.
It is not just about the food. So that is really important. So try not to worry so much about time. I mean, it is important to understand the difference between the sucks. And if you're unsure, like that is something that a lactation consultant can also help you with. But try not to worry about timing them because that's not what we're looking for here. It's not as important at all as it is for your baby to have that time at the breast with you. So that is kind of like the beginning of Breastfeeding 101. There's a lot of stuff that we haven't talked about, so maybe we'll have to do a part 2.
We can do Breastfeeding 102 or 201.
Yeah.
What do they do? I don't know. How do they do that?
Yeah, because the other stuff that I wanted to talk about that we don't have time for today would be like feeding cues and colostrum and engorgement and how to know your baby's getting enough and what to expect with weight loss and weight gain. So we might have to.
I'll just put that right on the calendar. Put that on the calendar right now.
Yeah, and we'll talk about all those things. So stay tuned.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.